Hi, I'm Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Okay, so let me paint a picture for you. Okay, like it's the late '90s or early 2000s. Chances are you're bumping some Timbaland in the car or in the club. You know, tracks like "Get Your Freak On," "Dirt Off Your Shoulder," "Promiscuous." I mean, Timbo was dominating the charts with these hits for Missy Elliott, Jay-Z, Justin Timberlake, and Canada's own Nelly Furtado. But lately, Timbaland's been making waves for all the wrong reasons, and all because of his troubling stance over AI. Dylan Green and Michelle Santos-Ooso have been following this story. They're with me now. Dylan, Michelle, welcome to Commotion.
Peace. Thanks for having me.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. So look, Dylan, Timbaland first started catching heat, I think early June when he signed his first AI artist, Tata. But then things just got more foul in the time since. Can you break it all down for us? What happened?
Yeah, so Timbaland is affiliated with this AI company called Suno. He's the strategic advisor for this company, and he used the software. He's alleged to have fed the model a beat made by this producer named K Fresh Music. And like people played the beats right next to each other just as a comparison, and it's pretty uncanny. Like, we're saying allegedly, but it seems pretty clear that like the bones of K Fresh's beat are in the beat that Timbaland generated with the software, and people aren't cool with it for a lot of reasons.
and Timbaland, he was claiming that, like, he's not trying to jack this original beat from this producer. He was just trying to demonstrate the ways that AI could be used to remix an already existing composition. Is that right?
That's what he claims, but a lot of people, myself included, think it really just borders on straight up stealing, because like generative AI is a whole bag of worms that I'm sure we're going to get into here, just in the sense that like this is like a computer spitting back out stuff that it's already learned, as opposed to like creating anything, which is very, very close to theft, at least in my opinion,
Well, yeah, I mean, let's let the audience decide right now. Let's actually take a listen to the original beat produced by K Fresh. Okay, so that was the original beat by K Fresh. Now take a listen to what happened when Timbaland put that same beat into the AI program that he's been promoting. Michelle, what's your reaction to hearing K Fresh's beat and then what Timbaland got after feeding it into this AI program?
That it was mimicking the beat almost entirely.
Yeah, and just putting some bells and whistles on top, basically.
Yeah, but I mean, you can even tell in the time signature and where the drum beats are that it's an exact copy.
Right.
Yeah, and the beat tag is also in there too. It's like a little different, but not that much different. It's basically the same thing.
Because that's what generative AI does. It mimics, it does not create.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, like, look, Dylan, I mean, you've written some criticisms about, like, not just Timbaland, but other high-profile artists like Erykah Badu and The Alchemist, who've all been receiving their fair share for using AI, their use of AI. Criticism coming in large part from the hip-hop world. What are people saying?
So people are saying, like essentially what I've said, that like this is stuff's just being jacked, and aesthetics are being flipped in ways that are cutting other artists out of the conversation. Like with Badu and The Alchemist in particular, they put out a visualizer for their single Next to You, and it's so clear that this whole thing was just made with generative AI. Like, it looks sloppy. Digits and hands and feet are like morphing into each other. Like, the lips aren't even in sync with the song. So the general consensus is that people are upset that real artists are being cut out of like actual financial opportunities, and just the fact that these are all people that can afford to put people on, essentially, and they're just not in just in a way to save as much money as they can. And you know, like being a legacy artist and like a Gen Xer in particular, just like trying to get in on the ground floor of what you think is going to be the most poppin' thing in 5 years. It just reeks of laziness in so many ways, in my and a lot of people in my circle's opinion.
Well, there's also this aspect of like Timbaland being someone who supposedly helps people on the ground, right? Or takes time to kind of
Mhm.
mentor younger artists, and though this kind of runs completely against what's been, well, like that whole vibe, right?
Yeah, it starts to feel predatory
Hmm.
after a while because you know like it's a difference between being on TikTok and listening to people's music and giving criticisms, giving praise, and then being like, I like this thing. Let me see what happens if I feed it into this thing without telling them. You know, like it's just you're just completely it's just an abuse of trust
Hmm.
in a lot of ways, you know.
Well, Michelle, then I mean, speaking of that abuse of trust, because like I think it's interesting that Timbaland, he's getting all this all this heat for this kind of for how he's using AI, and like like the troubling perspective, the how troubling it is from an ethical perspective, right? But I think
Mhm.
when we talk about the legal perspective, his actions actually seem okay, and that's baffling to me. But tell me, why is that?
It's because there's no real legislation around it. Now, using K Fresh's music without consent, that violated Suno's terms of service. But under current law, uh, there's nothing that you need to delete if AI learned from that actual beat, from the ingestion of it. And this is the rub. Music and lyrics that are 100% made by AI are ineligible for copyright protection, but the legal complication is that I call it the three C's. There are no laws around consent, credit, or compensation for artists who generative AI is training on. So while these systems are freely training on both copyrighted material and just independent artists, which is the case with this producer, until we get legislation around credit, compensation, and consent to use it in the first place, this is, I agree with Dylan. It's mostly going to disenfranchise smaller artists that are trying to come up.
I see. Okay. Okay. So then, Dylan, I mean, like, look, we're seeing these high-profile artists. I mean, they're taking their hits of their credibility because of their approaches to AI. Do you see any of this having a larger ripple effect on the way like artists are aligning themselves with AI-based technology, like moving forward?
I think I do, in the sense that these people are, once again, these are like established legacy artists doing this, and they're going to make it look cool to more people. And I think more people are going to be like, hey, I could figure out a way to get I could figure out a way to get in on this.
Mm.
And I just think more people are going to get drawn into this, and it's being sold to them as the future, but it's not really a future that most people should want to be a part of, because like what if it was your stuff that was fed into an AI model and then spat back out? You'd probably feel some type of way. I'd feel some type of way. So it's I think this is gonna destabilize things for a lot of people in the creative space, and make and eventually, if not already right now, make opportunities that much more scarce for like a creative economy that's already got its back at the wall in some crazy, crazy ways.
That's interesting because you're saying like a lot of people are arguing like there's no future in this, except that like I don't think any of us really believe that AI is actually going anywhere. And so Michelle,
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, like how are you seeing that like these tensions between AI and then human artists and then their fan bases and just the larger music industry, the music industry at large, like how do you see these tensions playing out?
It's clearly shaping up to be a battle. And unlike streaming's pro rata royalty problem, which was very confusing for consumers, this subject has successfully hit the radar of the music consumers. But
Yeah.
kind of going off the legacy artist point that Dylan made, I just want to point something out to people about how the artist paychecks. I want to point out that copyright ownership has a bundle of rights with it, that each of those rights has their own income stream attached to it. And there's 5 of them: to reproduce the work, to distribute the work, perform the work, make a derivative work, or display it. And each one of those has an income stream attached to it. So the tech oligarchy is going to continue to try to normalize copyright theft. If you look at how music has been devalued in the digital age already, and I'm saying from file sharing Napster, company that I actually worked at, it's upwards of 90% from the sales area in terms of the devaluation of music. So we have to compensate people for the artistic endeavors that they make. And that piece is not part of law.
Right. So then, I mean, Dylan, with all that in mind, like, where do you see this tension moving forward in the industry at large?
I don't really know. And I think that's the interesting and scary part, is that like a lot of what we're talking about is unprecedented here. Because like it's a difference between something like spell check or Grammarly, or something that's kind of meant to help, like tools that are used to help shape and mold stuff that's already been made, versus stuff that's creating based off of being fed the work of, like this artist or that artist. So I don't really know where it's heading. I do know that there's plenty of people who are against it, and like people like Michelle who are really well informed on just like the business aspect of the music industry. I think those people are going to play a really crucial role in making sure that people get compensated, and that this technology doesn't overextend itself and really start to take things over in a way that is going to make people very uncomfortable. But I mean, like, we're at a point where people are using Chat GPT as a therapist and proposing to their AI models. So maybe we're a little more far gone than I want to say. But I think we got some fight in us.
That's so dire, but I love the hope. Okay, so look, we got to leave it there. But thank you both for speaking to me on this. And so Dylan Green is a rap music and film critic and a co-founder of the pop culture platform Hearing Things. And Michelle Santoso is a veteran music industry insider and professor at Syracuse University. I'm Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. So Brad Pitt just scored his biggest opening weekend ever at the box office with F1.
They're saying Sonny Hayes isn't a has-been. He's a never was.
If the last thing I do is drive that car, I will take that life, man. 1,000 times.
So that's F1, the movie where Brad Pitt starring as Sonny Hayes, this older has-been Formula One driver. And he's bringing a certain cowboy aura opposite Damson Idris, who plays the young hotshot driver on the same team, who doesn't initially take care for Sonny's old school guidance. So you know the formula here. F1, I mean, it's yet another generational drama from the guy who directed Top Gun Maverick. And it made a fan out of Barry Hertz, who is strapped in here to talk about it. Barry, how you doing, boss?
I'm good. Thank you, Rad.
Okay, so look, I mentioned that this movie is directed by Joseph Kosinski, who made Top Gun Maverick. And of course, that movie, Top Gun Maverick, had so many soaring action scenes. And I was personally blown away by a lot of the race scenes in F1. So I want to know, what did you think of the movie on that front?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a truly visceral kind of experience. He really gets as close to the ground of the F1 track as the cameras kind of allow. You're really, for lack of a better term, you're thrown into the driver's seat yourself. Like, it's very immersive, very thrilling. You grip the armrests as the movie goes on.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of, I think, fodder for anyone who is an F1 fan of like, like seeing a real race car drivers and being on the real F1 tracks and getting there. But I don't think this was a movie that you needed to be an F1 fan to enjoy. 'Cause, I mean, I certainly never watched an F1 race in my life.
No, I've never watched an F1 race. I've never watched a Daytona race. I don't know anything other than the cars need to go fast and, be one ahead of the other to get to the finish line. I mean, one of the, very smart things that Kaczynski and the writers do here is they lay in all the kind of rules and regulations of an F1 race as it's going, because we have that narration by the racetrack announcers basically saying, okay, now he's there and that's good, and oh, they got to do this and that's bad, because otherwise
he's warming his tires
and oh, we got the safety car there, and this is what the safety car means, and like it's kind of like you got like an annotated Wikipedia version of like it's a second screen experience as the movie itself is going on.
Yeah, and sometimes like overstating the obvious to a point that the like audience is like laps ahead of the movie in the storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, he won. That's good for his character.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, okay, let's in terms of the character, let's talk about the Brad Pitt character in this movie, because like he's here as this kind of old school cowboy character, and he's schooling the youngins. A type of character we've met many times before, especially when you consider this movie a sort of dad cinema. When speaking to that end, like this is a movie that takes every opportunity to call Brad Pitt's character old. And I want to know, like, what do you think of Pitt's performance, but also in the context of a sort of meta commentary about where Pitt is at this point in his career?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of his performance, I mean, this is like he's got the movie star aura, down pat. Like there's a certain amount of name brand actors who are out there who can just kind of sell a script as formulaic as this based on their on-screen charisma alone. Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, they're kind of leading the pack. And, as kind of a commentary on where the industry's at, there's not a lot of people who are below them necessarily who can do that. So we get the commentary about like, this guy's old. Like this guy's like 60 plus. He should not be behind the wheel of an F1 race car. But then again, and they do make that comment a lot throughout the film. It's like, this guy's so old. He's he's way too old. But then again, he looks like Brad Pitt. And he doesn't look like any 60-year-old I've ever met. Like he looks younger than me for sure. Like, okay, I'll let it slide.
Yeah. Well, then the opposite of old in this movie is the young star, Damson Idris, right? And he's playing Joshua Pierce, the younger teammate who's on the rise. And I should say, like, when we talk about on the rise, I mean, that kind of applies to this actor as well, Damson Idris. I mean, this is a guy who, he got a lot of buzz when he was appearing in the show Snowfall, which is the crime drama by John Singleton. So what do you think this movie could do for his career? Like, do you think it could make him a star?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully. I mean, he is practically second billed here. He gets just as much screen time and character development as Pitt's Sonny Hayes character. And he holds his own. I mean, the benefit of him taking on this role is that you have to go up against like a superstar like Brad Pitt. But then again, like his character, Joshua, is such a cocky hotshot that you have to have that kind of confidence built into that. And Damson does a really good job at conveying that on the screen. Like he doesn't really care. He's there to win. And he's there to overpower Pitt on screen.
Yeah. What's interesting about the sort of generational drama of this is when you call him the cocky hotshot, it did feel like, okay, here's the old movie-going generation up against the TikTok generation.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's, it's very similar to what Kaczynski was doing with Maverick too, right? Like you had the Miles Teller character who was trying to prove himself, and well, as the Glenn Powell character. And then you have, Maverick come along from the old school and, show everybody how it's done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, but then, there is another thing I want to take away from that, because, we got to point out that Damson Idris is a black actor, right? And he's playing a black F1 driver. And in the real world, I mean, there's only one black man to have driven F1, raced in F1. That's Lewis Hamilton, who's actually here as a consultant and an executive producer and makes a cameo in the movie. And Lewis Hamilton has talked about the struggle of being like, the one black guy in this industry. And so when you think of this movie as a generational story, a story about passing on the torch, it's interesting how it then just ends up kind of reinforcing the stature of Pitt's character and by extension Pitt. And I wanted to know what you made of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting choice because it's just reinforcing, like, okay, this is the movie star land. This is the established movie star arc. We're going to give him and his character the kind of payoff that we're all expecting. And it's nice to kind of include Damson's character, but we're not really going to pay too much attention to it. And if you kind of look at the development of his character and the kind of background that he's from, it is kind of like blank. He is kind of a blank canvas. He is just that kind of like hotshot, kind of cocky guy coming up, but we don't really know anything about him in terms of his background, his culture. We get, snippets of him and his mom and his best friend / manager, but it's all kind of could come from anywhere.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, in reinforcing the Pitt character and the stature of it all, it also feels like it's reinforcing that older generation. Like it's almost like a concession to that generation and a concession to dad's cinema.
Yeah, it's like, don't worry, there's a little bit of change here, but by the end, the status quo will be affirmed. You'll feel comfortable. Nothing is going to rock your socks.
Exactly. Well, and also, by the way, I wonder if like this is even a conversation that F1 as a brand would make room for, because of course this is a movie that was made in partnership with F1. In fact, people compared it to Barbie in terms of the idea of working within a brand landscape. And of course, to that end, what do they get out of working with F1? Well, they get these real world callbacks. They get guys like Lewis Hamilton and another F1 driver, Max Verstappen, making cameos here. They get to shoot on the real F1 tracks. Do you think, though, all that branding then could be a distraction or just take away from the story at all?
Maybe in another movie it would be, but it is called F1 the movie, yes. Just as Barbie was called Barbie the movie, the Lego, so you kind of walk in knowing what you're getting into in terms of the brand exercise. Personally, it didn't matter. I didn't mind so much, but you could, it's not as egregious as, let's say, like the new Jurassic Park movie, in which like Snickers plays basically a supporting role. And that has nothing to do with Jurassic Park. It's just like pure crass product placement. Yeah. And this one, it's kind of baked into the concept. Right. So you appreciate it a little bit more. And, the team that Sonny and Joshua race for is a fictitious team that's been invented for this movie. So that felt like a little less, queasy.
Okay. Okay, look, like, and we're talking about before, we were saying how F1 is actually made by Apple. This is so it's a big box office hit, not just for Brad Pitt, like his biggest opening weekend ever, but it's also the biggest opening weekend for an Apple movie, right? And I guess it's safe to say that F1 is going to be on Apple TV Plus anytime soon. I personally can't imagine enjoying the movie as I did on my TV at home or on my iPad. But I'm curious, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, maybe it plays well in whatever home theater setup Tim Cook has at his crib. But yeah, it definitely is this is very much a theatrical experience. I understand why Apple is making the big theatrical push for it. But to say that it's Apple's biggest opening ever is kind of faint praise. They've only released half a dozen movies theatrically, and they've all been pretty abysmal. Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon accepted. So it's interesting to see them kind of play in the Hollywood ecosystem, but really with just a little toe dip. And to see. And then again, it got 50 million plus on its opening weekend, which is great. As you say, Brad Pitt's biggest opening ever. But if this movie, which is budgeted at at least 200 million plus, came from a legacy studio like Disney or Sony or Paramount, whatever, and only got 50, we'd be talking a very different conversation about failure to launch.
Right. So then, just 30 seconds left. But then, do you think then that this is the pot that Apple needed to see in order to commit more to the theatrical experience, or do you think that they're gonna go the Netflix route?
No, I think it depends on the project. I think if they think they have a big kind of 4-quadrant play like this, a big kind of blockbuster that brings in the crowds, then yeah, they can see the potential there. Okay. But for something a little bit smaller, they'll probably stick it to the direct to streaming route.
All right, perfect. Barry, I love that I have you here. After we're doing this, we're going for a race.
Yeah. I watch out, police.
All right, so Barry Hertz is the film and deputy arts editor at the Globe and Mail. He has joined me in studio. F1, the movie, is in theaters now. And that's it for the podcast today. Remember, you could listen to any episode of Commotion at any time, wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out on YouTube and Instagram. We're at Commotion CBC. I'm Rad Simonpillai, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. I'll see you tomorrow.